Right now, half of our unit is going into their last year of eligibility. The other half is returning underclassmen that I'm really excited about. Those guys from where they're at from a developmental standpoint. There's some of the guys are younger. Some guys have been in the program 3 years, some guys 2 years, some guys just got here. Like Mario Nash just got here in January. He's a rookie. He's figuring things out. But as a whole, I like the mix of the group. And our veteran players, you can tell these guys have played a lot of football. Obviously, I have a long-standing relationship with Adrian Medley, who I had for 4 years. We had him down there at UCF for 4 years, so I know Adrian inside and out as a young man and as a player, right? But then you add in 7 other guys who have 1 year of eligibility left, and you can see those guys have played a lot of reps. They pick things up quickly and process fast. So that part of it's exciting. The younger players, the mix of the younger players, I like the way it's broken down from a class standpoint. And we still have, 3 other signees that are still coming in. Mario's the only early enroll signee. There's 3 other guys that will be in his class that will be added to the mix here in May or June, whenever they get here. But the breakdown of those classes, I feel is pretty balanced. You know what I mean? We're a little bit top heavy in the fact that you have 8 guys that are going into their last year. So we've got to work on that dynamic as we go forward in recruiting. But in terms of the unit itself, I like where we're at. Of course, we haven't put any pads on yet either, so we got to get out there and put some pads on and get some real work in. We've done a lot of work to this point. Most of it's been mental work, rather than the physical pounding of it. We haven't been able to do any of that. So once we put it all together, I'll have a better feel for it. But I like where we're at right now.
Talking about like the young guys that you came in, maybe the underclassmen who are a little bit further away from playing and like have a developmental plan, did you really reconsider how their process is going to be, how their process is going to look as they get ready to play over the next few years? Being a new coach, guys like Lucas Simmons, guys like Otto played last year, but those guys, did you really just kind of recalibrate? Just we're starting fresh. I'm a new coach, or is it sort of
no? It's
you're
building on what they have from an experience standpoint. And guys are at different spots. Lucas has been here. Andre's been here. Jalen Early has been here. Jalen was a guy. Really, all 3 of those guys I recruited out of high school. So I had a baseline relationship with all 3 of those guys. Those guys have played a lot of reps. And here's the thing: like, you can go on the game field. There's nothing like game reps, okay? But you can tell when a guy's taken 1,000 reps or more in practice. You know what I mean? These guys have been coached, okay? So they're not like high school players that are just coming out. Those are guys where you're at a baseline, where you're like, okay, let me see where this dude's at. Now, you're always evaluating where guys are at, even those younger guys. Jonathan Daniels, right? I think he's got tremendous upside. Manasseh got tremendous upside. Okay, so we have some really good young players, as well as guys that are kind of mid-experienced guys like Jalen, Otto, and Lucas. This is going to be a really big spring for Lucas. He's going to have a great opportunity this spring to put some good stuff on film. And then you have all the veteran guys. So there's a really good mix in there. But there are, there's different levels at where they're been coached to at this point, like you could tell. And when it really shows up, it was when it comes to processing. You know what I mean? And when the defense changes right before the snap, veteran guys have a tendency to be able to handle that stuff because they've seen it over and over and over again, And so hopefully by the end of spring, we'll have everybody, kind of at that veteran level, if you will. So.
And I know the last coach, the big thing was cross-training.
Yep.
How do you feel about that? I know every O-line coach is a little different on it.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Is there any specific center to tackle, center to guard, or are you just flexible?
Yeah, so Yeah, and Alex has done a great job.
Right.
Okay, and he's a really good football coach and a good friend of mine, and so he and I have talked about the cross training stuff in the past before. I think that as an O-line coach, okay, your job is to make sure that your 5 best players are always on the field. Who's available, right? So you have your 5 starters. Well, let's say that, let's just use it as an example. You got your right tackle, then you got your dude that's maybe taking the majority of the reps in practice at second team right tackle. But if your second team right tackle is your 10th best offensive lineman overall, okay, and the right tackle gets dinged up or has to come out for a series or maybe a quarter, whatever it is, and it doesn't make sense that you would take your 10th best guy and put him on the field and your 6th best guy is standing there watching. So you always have to have contingency plans in place. Now, what it takes to be able to do that is you have to have some versatility from a player standpoint, okay, from a skill set standpoint. Guys, you don't want to, you're not trying to put a square peg in a round hole type deal. So the guy has to have some versatility with it. Generally speaking, you want to have experienced players that have the ability to do that. So what we'll do as we go through the course of spring is try to identify the players who can handle that from a physical standpoint, right, from a skill set standpoint, but also from a mental standpoint, because that's challenging, and so whenever we bring in a young player, right, you want to give a guy a home base. Like, this is your spot where you're going to start at, okay? And then eventually you say, hey, today in practice, I'm going to get you some reps. Instead of at right guard, you're going to rep at left guard, or you're going to rep from right guard, I'm going to rep you at right tackle today, just to get them some, and it might even be just install period reps, whatever it is, during quarterback center exchange, anybody that can snap the ball, you send them to CQ so that they can get work snapping it. They may never take a rep in practice, for 2 or 3 weeks at center, but they've been snapping, from day one. So all those things you have to factor in because, like I said, my job is to make sure that we have the 5 best players on the field at all times. When you have guys that have versatility, it gives you the ability to juggle that. But it also, you don't ever want to get to where a player becomes a jack of all trades, a master of none. You know what I mean? So that's why you give them a home base and then you try to develop them accordingly. A lot of times it's with the more experienced players that are able to do that.
I know you talked a lot, like inside zone kind of being your bread and butter a little bit.
Yes.
What about in pass protection? Like, what type of sets do you sort of lean towards? Is that something you're willing to personalize to the player? Do you care if the left and right tackle are?
Well, no. So when we start talking about pass protections, okay, there's 2 different areas there, right? You have schematic concerns or schematic philosophy, okay, and then you have individual technique and fundamentals, okay, and how do they fit into the schemes, right? So, we have 5-man drop back pass protections, we have 6-man drop back pass protections, we have some 5-man play action protections, we have some 6-man play action protections, we got 7-man play action protections, we have some protections that we call bob slide protections, where you're big on one side and you're sliding, generally speaking, the center or whoever's sliding back with the center. You have some protections, there's 7-man full slide protections, okay? So there's a variety of protection schemes. There's sprint protections, there's nakeds, there's bootleg protections, there's a lot of different things that factor into it, okay? So that's more from the schematic standpoint, right? When you start talking about specific technique and fundamentals, most people at that time, and I'm not trying to say what you were asking me, but most people at that point are probably talking more about in drop back pass protection, what are your set angles or your set philosophies, that sort of stuff.
Pure drop.
Yeah, so just drop back 6-man pass protection, pocket throws, or 5-man pass protection. It's a little bit different from a technique and fundamental standpoint. But we basically work different set angles okay, based on situations, right? So a 1st and 10 set might be a little bit different than a 3rd down or long set, okay? Different set angles based on defenders' alignments, right? Where's the defender aligned on me physically in comparison to where the launch point is, okay? What type of an angle can I work? Different set angles or set things based on my skill set. What am I bringing to the table? Some guys who are a little bit longer, right? Longer arms, longer legs. Certainly tackles, set angles are a lot different than guards and centers. Generally speaking, right? Your tackles, you want the tackle's main priority in drop back pass protection is to maintain the width of the pocket, okay? So you're not getting collapsed upon. And then the guards and centers, their primary focus is to maintain the depth of the pocket, so you actually have a pocket to step up into. So that changes your set angles and maybe the aggression that you're setting with, that type of stuff. Are you seeing a lot of twist games? Is it, the team you're getting ready to play, are they I would say if there's hair, skin, and crap flying all over the place, sometimes you got to set more vertically and let things pass off, or allow the games to happen so you can pass them off and you're not getting off levels. So there's a lot that goes into it. But we try to. Here's the other thing too. Now let's leave it with this. The last part about this is this. At some point, there's one thing that's going to happen on every single offensive play. What is it? The ball's going to be snapped. The ball's going to be snapped, right? So I say all that stuff, but then at some point that ball's going to be snapped and the guy's got to play.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you can't have it where the guy's overthinking and it becomes paralysis by analysis, like my golf swing. You know what I'm saying? Where you start thinking about too many things and you can't do anything. Okay? So, but you want to provide them with tools to be able to solve problems. Whether it's in the run game or whether it's in pass protection, to be able to solve problems on the field and provide them with the tools to do that. That's kind of what my role is.
With your younger guys,
yeah.
How do you, knowing that you're bringing in guys that have combined for over 100 starts, how much do you want to see a competitive spirit out of your younger guys who might not be ready to play right now, but you want them to push the older guys and not just be okay with being second string? You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's nobody that will be comfortable when it comes to if you get comfortable being a second team guy or a third team guy, if you're comfortable in that, if that's then go somewhere else, because I want guys that are pushing each other to continue to develop. Just like you should never get comfortable if you're the starter, quote unquote.
Right.
Okay. I want, if I'm the starting left tackle, whoever my backup is, I want that guy pushing me in practice every day to bring out the best in me, right? I don't want the guy behind me that's non-competitive. I want the guy behind the left tackle to say, hey, I'm trying to take his job, and I'm going to compete for that, because here's what will happen is eventually, right, whether in a situation that maybe is, whether it's by injury,
right,
okay, or whatever, all of a sudden that second team guy, everybody in the building's counting on him to do his job. And if he doesn't prepare like the starter every single day, when that moment comes, he won't be ready, and now it might be because of graduation, right? All of a sudden the dude in front of you, maybe the guy in front of you is an All-American left guard and you're the backup left guard, and he graduates, because they're all going to graduate eventually. He graduates and you haven't prepared for that moment with every rep that you've taken in practice. When that moment arises, you won't be ready for it. So we always talk about, you got to stay ready so you don't have to get ready. How do you stay ready? You bring your best to practice every day, because that moment is going to come. And then all of a sudden, it might be in the middle of a game where it's like, boom, something happens, like, hey, you're in at center. And now the whole program is counting on you. Are you ready for that moment? And that is a challenge when you are a quote unquote backup player, right? Is that you have to prepare like a starter. And then during spring, I always tell, hey, control what you can control during the spring, right? So what do you control every day? You bring your attitude, your effort, your attention to detail to practice every day. Just bring those three things, right? And if you bring those three things, everything else will take care of itself. Don't worry about who's running with the ones, who's running with the twos, how many. It'll all take care of itself if you bring great attitude, great work ethic, and great attention to detail, and then go and put your best on film every day and see what happens. Because it might be where you come in and, one guy is the incumbent. We don't have any incumbents right now.
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We have no incumbents. But one guy's, got some reps to him, and then you're the backup. If you just approach it as it, you'll never compete to take the job.
Right.
But you got to bring that competitive spirit every day, in order to be ready also when your time comes. So.